What's up, everybody? Welcome to NWA Nurses with Attitude. Leanne and I want to throw a quick shout out to the listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support episode after episode, and we hope you guys enjoy this content as much as we love making it. If you guys want, go check us out on our social, Nurses with Attitude on Instagram. That's where you'll find all the updates you need, and also shoot us a message if you want. Enjoy the episode, guys. Yellow.
Oh,
Hey, what's up? Welcome to NWA Nurses with Attitude.
we're back, as we always
Yeah.
say. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since we've sat down to record, and Joe, I know we probably record once a month now at this point. Just the nice weather coming out, we're both busy, you're back in town, you're working. How's that going, by the way? What's the update?
Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's going good. Just like to find time, and I feel like a lot of nurses, and I know you struggle with this too. When you get offered a shift, it is even if you like feel yourself burning out and you're tired, and you're like, I could probably do stuff. When you get offered a shift, it is so hard to deny it. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like you know that feeling you
Why are
get.
we like that?
I have no idea. Like, I'll be like, you know what? No, I worked. Like, I cannot take this shift today. I need some me time. You know, I'll put my phone down and I'll come back to 10 minutes later and accept the shift. And I'll just be like, what? Like, I can't not take it, you know? I don't
Yeah,
know.
when I worked in the long-term care home, you would like submit your availability, and so you would kind of like you had a regular rotation. So I was part-time at the like when I started, so I would work 2 days a week on and then four off. And
And that
they
was,
would
was, was that always like that, Leanne? Like every week you worked 2 days every week.
Yeah, so I had like an ongoing rotation, right? And then what you would do is you would go in and like submit your availability. So you would go in and it had a calendar and you would say like, "Oh, I'm available day shift on the 17th and then an evening shift on the 18th." And then the day would come, Joe, and I put my availability in for that day and I'm like, "Damn, why was I so ambitious at the time?" Like I
No, I
don't want the
totally feel
shift
you.
anymore.
But then you end up going to work and you have a great time. Like you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like it's sometimes I guess yeah, we all have bad days, but most of the time you go in and you enjoy the work. But it's like this impending doom, and it's like beautiful outside, and you're just like,
I
man,
know.
why would I want to go to work?
Well, and I think if I worked in a facility still, I would really struggle with that because I'm someone who, I don't think I get like seasonal depression per se, like, excessively or anything. But, when springtime like rolls around, I'm definitely more energetic. I want to be outside. I love the sun. Like, I'm out putting around in the yard. We take the dog for the walks. Like, it's nice weather, right? And so
Totally.
being stuck in a facility, like working a day shift or whatever, I just like don't miss that. If I'm being honest, like I still have to
For
work,
real,
don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but I get to drive around, be in the community, see clients, do marketing. Like I get to enjoy the weather more. And it's so nice.
That is really nice. And I guess like home nurses would feel that too. Like technically, like you are a management, but like in the realm of like home care, right?
Yeah.
They get to enjoy it. My mom did home care as a nurse and she loved
Oh
it.
yeah.
Like she would, yeah, she loved it. Like she would leave early in the morning, do some clients, come back, drive us to school, and then she would like just spend her day. Like sometimes she would come to our school for lunch. Like it was just like really flexible with what she was
Yeah,
able to kind of do.
definitely.
Because they would give her like 15 clients, and it's like doesn't matter what time as long as they get done, sort of thing. So she would kind of make her own schedule. She was just living life.
Yeah.
Plus home care, if you're going to nursing, it's not bad money if that's your
No, it's
style. Some people don't like it. Some people, and I don't know if I necessarily like it that much. Like I prefer I just like do my 8 hours or
not.
like
Yeah.
12 hours and kind of like get done with it.
Yeah.
Um, but
I don't
yeah,
know.
there's a lot of different ways to enjoy your life as a nurse depending on who you are.
Yeah. And I never really thought I would, I guess, going through school, like, they talk about obviously supporting seniors is like the number one most talked about nursing, role. And so that's typically within long-term care, retirement homes, and then obviously hospitals. And I think community care was mentioned like a handful of times, but it was only mentioned from, maybe peers that were doing a presentation or guest speakers we had or whatever. But community nursing wasn't really something that was well talked about. And at least I found anyway. And so I never really pictured myself, to be honest, like working in community nursing care. But like you say, I really enjoy the flexibility of it. And I liked it a lot. But like you say, you don't, I guess to wrap it up, you don't really have to work in one specific setting to
Totally.
be considered a nurse. And like, this is a
Yeah.
huge theme because when you guys are listening to this now, it's most likely Nurses Week. We are recording this, a few days before Nurses Week starts. But on my Instagram, Joe, there's this page that I follow, and they posted, and it's like, just a PSA, you don't have to work in any type of environment to be considered a nurse. And I think that's huge nowadays because nurses have so many opportunities. Would you not agree?
Oh, 100%. And often, like, I'm kind of confused by that statement, to be honest. Like, what do they mean? Like, you don't have, like, do they mean, like, in the sense of when you say you're a nurse, people always ask, like, oh, do you work in the hospital? Like, that's the most
Yeah,
common thing that you hear. But there's nurses who work, like, inner city, long-term care, retirement, schools.
right.
Some nurses work at, like, facilities too, like oil fields,
Yeah,
um, health centers, dental clinics, surgery,
all kinds of stuff.
outpatient like surgery clinics or ambulatory clinics and stuff. So is that what it's kind of like alluding to? Like you don't have to work in the hospital to be considered a nurse, like
Yeah, I think so.
sort of thing?
Like,
Yeah.
I society thinks of a nurse, they think of, the typical gal, first of all, female, you know,
Damn it.
typical like gender stereotypes. But it's true, right, Joe?
Yeah, no, it's so
And
100%.
it's like typical girl works in the hospital, works in emergency, like that's your typical nurse. But she's just saying that you don't bring any less value to the table just because you're in a different setting, and all settings are just as important.
Totally.
And I just love that, and
That's
as
amazing.
someone who works as a case manager who isn't even really providing direct care. I mean, I do from time to time, I get to do wound care and stuff like that, but I feel that in my soul because I'm not an on floor nurse anymore. But I love this podcast because we talk about the differences, and we always share our opinions, and we're still a community regardless of what your environment is. And I just love that.
Totally. That's awesome. And you know what? Like a big part of nursing is delegation. And that is like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like if you ever feel like you're not a nurse, like hit that brakes, hit those brakes, because you 100% are. Like, and it's true. There's so many different kinds. Like, nursing is a great field, guys. It is a great field. And even if you're like, it's beautiful. I'm sure it's beautiful in Calgary too. So I'm in Saskatoon. For those of you who don't know,
Mhm.
Flatlands, middle of nowhere, farm town. Leanne's in Calgary. It's beautiful there, though, right? Like, am I assuming?
Man, 28 degrees today, beautiful
Right,
sunshine all week, 25. This is what I'm
chilling.
talking about. Like being outside is the goal.
Yeah, like I went for a long, long walk today. Um, and it was so nice. Like just like the sun beamed down. It's 25 here too, sunny, like clear skies. Not like Ontario. So what I learned is Ontario, super rainy. Ontario,
Yeah.
I've never been to BC, but from what people say, it like it sounds like Ontario too, like in Ottawa at least. It is in Toronto too, like it's always raining. We for sure like get, sometimes like we've had a drought before in Ottawa where it was like really sunny for a long time. But for the most part, most of the summers like it rains at least 3 to 4 times a week on average, I would say throughout the summer.
They definitely have like a distinct springtime, I would say. We're here in Alberta. I find we jump into nice weather, it's sunny, but then it gets rainy around June, and we'll have, majority of June. In the past, it's rained quite a bit. Here, they like to call it
Okay.
monsoon June. But then it jumps right back into like
Oh,
hot weather. It's really weird because we
did not
kind of,
know that.
Yeah, we kind of bypass the spring. Like you come out of winter, you're kind of warming up, the snow turns to rain is the idea. Like I think Ontario goes through the proper motions per se, but Alberta's weird because you come out of winter, you have a couple nice days, and then you get a second winter, which is like another snowstorm. And then you have this beautiful
Yeah.
25 plus weather. And then in June, it starts to rain, which is good for like the grass and the plants and stuff. And a lot of time we get a lot of smoke in the air here from the fires of BC. So
Yeah.
the rain is good, right, to help settle all of that. But then July, August, September, October, like it's hot as balls.
Right? But you know what? Hot but livable. Like in Ontario, you die. Like in Ontario, you're like,
Yeah,
let's go for a walk in June. Like you're gonna walk to the ICU. Like that's where you're walking because like you're gonna
it's hot.
fucking die. It's hot. Like it's super. When I first came out west, I got off the plane and they were like, it's plus 40 today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I better get ready to like almost die. And I walked outside and I'm like, no, it's not. Like this isn't plus 40. Like I like took a deep breath of fresh air. I'm like, man, like what?
I
It was
know.
just
And
like it's crazy. It's awesome though. You can enjoy outside. You can go
I
outside
totally
and
agree.
enjoy it.
I totally agree because one thing I've noticed, Joe, is that back in Ontario, it's very humid there. And even in the winter, it's a
Totally.
very humid cold. And so it like chills you to the bone. Like that's kind of the only way I can explain it. And then in the summer, it's so hot, like to the point where like everybody has AC. If you don't have an AC unit in Ontario, you're kind of like people look at you funny. Pools are huge there. Where
I didn't have an AC when I
I know, but
like
I'm sure
in one
people
of
would
my
look at
places
you
I didn't.
like what the
Oh,
hell? Like how do
there
you
was
survive?
well, there was a day that I straight up like we didn't have AC because this was like well actually this was while I was in school and it was summertime and it was super super hot and I did a workout and my body didn't cool down after the workout. Like I took a cold shower and I got out and my body would not cool down. So I straight up rented a hotel room for the weekend.
Yeah,
Like that's how hot it was, guys. Like it was
right.
man, it must have easily they say plus 40, but like man, it was probably like plus 70. Like that's all like I thought I was gonna die. Like I was like, I need to get a hotel room. Like I cannot do this.
And then, to compare that to Alberta, here at least, there's always a breeze and it's not humid. It's very dry here. And so you don't get that like smoldering hotness. It's really hard to explain.
It's
It's something you
so
have to like
it's like
experience.
you get the sun and you feel the heat, but you're cooled down by the wind. It's like
Right.
there's two factors at play, right? And in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan, if you have like long hair, you like styling your hair, like no way. Like it's not happening because it's always windy in Saskatoon. Like I've never like
Yeah,
honestly, hand on my heart, there's not been a day where it's not like windy. But
because
it's
it's so
nice.
flat.
It's so flat. It's like there's always a wind. Like it's stupid. Like I cannot even like tell you how wind like I just don't get it. And it is annoying sometimes to be honest. But it's nice when you're walking outside and
Yeah.
the wind's blowing, but you can still feel the heat on your skin. That
Yeah.
said, it makes you a good candidate to get sunburned because you feel
Right.
cool still, but you don't realize the sun burning your skin sort of thing.
I think I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, one of the first couple episodes we did, or maybe we talked about this, but we also have something like known as a western sky. And so my mom always says that when she comes to Alberta to visit, she always says how blue our sky is. And
So it's actually called Land of the Living Skies, the prairies.
right, because the sky is so blue and so beautiful. And then you go back to Ontario, like I don't know if you've been back recently, Joe, but the sky is like gray.
Sky and it's
Have you
always cloudy.
noticed?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There's no clouds out here though. Like that like it's literally land of the living skies.
Yeah.
Um
Well, because it's so windy, right?
yeah, it's so windy and like you can just see forever.
Yeah.
It is really really beautiful. Yeah, Ontario is really really cloudy and I assume BC is the same. Like kind of the same idea there. So there's pros and cons to wherever you live, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
To wrap that up. But
Yeah.
man, the weather has been beautiful. I kind of, you know what? summer, the beginning of summer, I have an analogy for nurses. The beginning of summer is like being a nurse coming off of like vacation. So you work through the winter, whatever, right? The sun comes out. All you want to do is like play, like, like play hard, go outside, do your stuff,
Yeah.
all this. But then by the time July comes, it gets really hot, and then you kind of get sick of it because you're like, man, I'm so hot all the time. Like, I just want to like be somewhere cool and like
Right.
whatever. Same thing for nurses. You go on vacation, you're like, no, I'm gonna work my ass off. So you work your ass off for like 2 months, and you're like, I can't do no more. Like, I don't want to work anymore. I want to stop.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. And are you going to go back to doing agency work too, or are you at this facility now, like full time,
So I'm in a
moving
little
forward?
bit of a pickle because I work at this it's I work at like this long-term care home, and it's going pretty. I actually love it. Probably one of my most favorite places to
Mhm.
work yet. Love it. And I'm doing research as well, and I love the research. The thing with
Right.
the research is it's not exactly like nursing. It is nursing research, but it's not working as a nurse. And that's another field in nursing too, guys. Like nursing research is a thing. And it's not what you guys imagine. Like um in the position you would work most likely as a nurse is not the position of like the actual like lead investigator is what it's called, which is the main researcher. And the main researcher is the one that like usually does like the synopsis of the study. They're the one who do like the research methods. Really, you're just a big piece in a huge small piece in a huge puzzle. And I make phone calls a lot. I go into homes. I do some liaison stuff. I call, you know, um, I call various people within the study.
Mhm.
Um, and that's taken a lot of my time more than I thought. So there's days that I have to refuse shifts from the long-term care home that I work at to do the research.
Right.
And the reason why I'm saying I'm in a pickle, I feel like you could kind of relate with your role, is that I would want to do like a 5-to-1 ratio, like 5 days at the home and then like 1 day working with research. Whereas the workload
Yeah.
right now is a lot. It's summertime, so I guess they're finding a little bit of struggle, like to get people on board.
Yeah.
So I've only been working with the research since October, but I've become one of the senior leads in this research.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I'm not complaining. Like, it's awesome. I actually do really, really like it. But there's days that I'm like, I wish I could, because I love nursing. I honestly love going to work. Work is a good thing
Yeah.
for me. It's
Yeah.
and being somewhere new. I don't. You guys knew people in Calgary, eh? Like when you
A
guys moved
couple
out there,
people. Yeah, just a few. But I mean, it's like starting fresh, regardless, in
for
terms of
sure.
like your social life, and then obviously your like your employer presence that you build, like especially within the nursing community, everyone knows everyone. But going back to what you were describing your research as, Joe, that sounds like really good experience for a potential management role. Like all the things you're doing are skills that, I use day to day, that could be leveraged within a management role. So if that's your goal eventually, like if you wanted to be a director of care, like I could totally see you doing that. These are good skills to be leveraging through your research.
Totally. That's
Yeah.
exactly why I'm in it, Leanne. Like
Yeah.
I the research part, like the core part where I'm doing the research is great, but then the secondary part is I get to go into like long-term care homes all across Saskatchewan. So I'm
Nice.
working all across Saskatchewan right now. And I get to see how those models work. The different models, we're implementing kind of a new model. I don't know if I could say too much about it, but
Yeah.
we're working within all these aspects of healthcare. And guys, what you're
Mhm.
going to realize, because our system is provincial, I've worked in 4 different provinces in Canada, and it's different.
It is.
There's good things and there's bad things within each system. Maybe we can take an episode to go into some specific things, but it is different everywhere. And I would say I would love to see a standardized healthcare system. Um, but yeah, Leanne, you're totally right. Like, there's an end goal, right? obviously
Yeah.
for everyone. And if you're getting new into nursing, if you're just a student, you don't know what you want to do. I find the outlook is always like hospital, like ER, or like ICU, or like pediatrics, or like maternity. Like those are the hot spots in nursing that everyone wants to go. But you can literally do so much. Like
And
don't
that just
limit
goes
yourself.
back that just goes back to that girl saying you don't have to work in a certain environment just to be a nurse.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. It's
100%.
like everybody just like feels they need to be in this certain environment, but you don't. You don't. I mean, if that's what you thrive in, like go for it. No one, you do what's best for you, but just know, like Joe's saying, there's so many options out there. Um, so
Essentially, oh
how
sorry,
many
Leanne.
hours how many hours are you working? Like, do you work certain days in research? How does that work? Like, can you manipulate your schedule a little bit so that you're maybe supporting in the facility for like 3 days a week and then doing research for 2 days a week or something?
Essentially, I can, but in my role as like in the research role, I need to be available. So I'm calling potential participants, and then I'm calling people who are involved in the study on a higher level. So usually people who work in like long-term care homes. So I
Okay.
kind of have to be available in those like times. So for participant recruitment, it's usually mornings on the weekend, and then evenings on the weekdays. Those
Right.
are kind of the hot spots. But I also need to be available during the day if I need to contact people at the home to coordinate certain things. And then I do
Yeah.
some in person, like I do some work in person as well. So I have 2 days right now that I'm coordinating, um, that are supposed to be like my kind of at home days that I do the research.
Right.
But it things pop up last minute, right? And then someone needs to kind of fill in. So yeah, like my goal obviously is to do that. I'm trying to do at least 3 days a week in person, which I am doing. Like I'm meeting that quota so far.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just, and that's the thing, guys. Like if you are worried about getting a job as a nurse, like don't be worried. If you throw yourself in positions and you have like that dog mentality, the mentality of wanting to work, your issue will be like scheduling time to do a podcast that you like to do with your friends.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be your biggest issue.
Seriously. Joe, I feel like you have so much on the go. Like, how are you managing it? Tell me about how you're managing your burnout. Like, just listening to you sounds exhausting, if I'm being honest. The fact that you've got all this on the go, I'm literally just sitting in my living room recording this podcast with my dog. Like, I just worked 8 to 4 and I'm done. Like, how do you manage it?
Yeah, I have no idea. I wake up in the morning, I have some coffee, and like I think it's mindset too, right? When I
Yeah.
go to work at the long-term care home, I actually see it as kind of a break, to be honest with you. I do my nursing duties, I do my assessment, but I love hanging out and making connections with the residents, and they're kind
Yeah.
of like my friends, right? Because
Yeah.
um
Do you
so
work days or
and
evenings?
both, and nights too, and that's the difficult part. Honestly,
Ooh,
the
dang.
part where the burnout comes. So I did a few nights last week, Leanne, and
Yeah.
holy cow, I was like, I'm gonna do these 3 nights in a row, and then I'm just gonna like sleep for a day, sleep
No, no,
that
no,
that night,
no.
and then no, it doesn't work like that. Like
No.
I was up at like 1 o'clock in the morning, wide awake. Like my mind
Yep.
just like you can't shut off. But then you have to be at work at 7 a.m. and you're like, holy cow, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
worked nights for a long time.
yeah, was it straight nights that you worked?
Yeah. But it
That
was
was as a
rough.
PSW, right?
Yeah, and I'm not a night person. I'm very much a morning person, and working nights was really hard. Really hard. Um,
People, like, I
yeah.
don't think you realize until you actually work nights how difficult it is to, like, it's like almost like your natural rhythm is like very disrupted when you do nights.
Well, absolutely. Plus, not to mention, Joe, like all of society operates on a morning person schedule. Like, kids go to school for I don't know what time, like 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's like for those who like to stay up late and are not morning people, just in general, like how awful. Honestly, like
Totally,
Ben is not a
totally.
morning person and I see the struggle. It's like if he had an
Does Ben
appointment at
work?
like,
Does Ben work
sorry,
mornings?
yeah, he's like at work for 8 a.m.
Oh boy.
And like watching him get out of bed, like it's tough because he's just not wired that way, you know? Like where me, I'm up, I'm feeding the dog, I go out, start the car, makes breakfast, like, you know, I'm like, I'm going. But not everyone's like that. And I think that once you work nights as a nurse, like you kind of have that idea. If you're not, even if you are a night person, working night shift is hard. It's hard, man.
It is. And have you met those nurses who just love night shift? Like there's some nurses who really like it and just
Yeah,
do it
but
all the time.
do you think those are the nurses that have kids or you know what I
You know
mean? Like
what though? What I'm gonna
some
say,
of them
Leanne,
do.
actually all the night nurses that I can think of who come to mind, they have kids and what they do is they work, they spend the morning with their kids and then they send their kids to school. They
Right.
sleep while their kids are in school.
Yeah.
They wake up, pick their kids up, put their kids to bed, especially so it's usually like when they have younger kids.
Yeah.
But then they take a quick nap before work and then they do their nights.
Well,
And
I was
I
going to
I couldn't do
say
that. Like that
no.
sounds brutal.
I was going to say they have kids who are in school because there's no way you could manage like a 2-year-old and working night shift. Like there's no way.
Yeah. And it's a very like sweet I guess when your kids are teenagers too. But I
Right.
was gonna say there's a very specific age, like they have to be old enough to like go to school. But once they're teenagers, you don't have to worry about them at all.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
well, like a little bit obviously.
Yeah, no night shift for me. I I also found, Joe, that with my autoimmune disease, it really I struggled more with managing it on a night shift,
That
and
is
I think
so
that's
true.
because it like you say, you have this, like, natural rhythm, whether that's, like, your circadian rhythm or whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm not a scientist, and I don't, like, fully understand all of it, but
Oh, but you're onto something. Like
when
our
you're
body's
total
always
right.
pumping hormones and you know nerve impulses. Like they're all scheduled for certain times, and that's why shift work is actually. I think
It's
I read somewhere like
yeah,
shift work is the worst for people. Like
it is.
those who work shift work apparently have significantly higher rates of like chronic illness and like
Yeah.
higher levels of like mortality and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've heard of
Science.
this too. Yeah, and it's been tested, and there were studies on this, and which I'm not really surprised by, Joe, because even like when I worked day shift, and I know I've mentioned this lots before, but I would come home, sleep, eat dinner, sleep, and then get up again for work the next day. Like I was so drained. And I think
Hmm.
a part of that is like, especially for nurses, and I'm not discrediting anyone else who works shift work because it's not easy in any role, but I can only talk on my own personal experiences here. But when you're a nurse, you have to be full on from 7 to 3 or 3 to 11 or whatever your shift is, 7 to 7, full on. You have to
But
pay
you're on.
attention.
Yeah.
You have to be observant. You have to know the meds. You have to like full on 100% of your effort. You have to be enthusiastic. You have to communicate. You have to listen. You have to be literally a jack of all trades on your feet, moving. Like it's a lot. And I notice now, Joe, that I actually worked this past weekend and went to an expo with my boss. She came down from BC, and I was saying to her, you know, we had to sit at this booth and we were doing some marketing with some seniors over the weekend. And I said to her, I was like, after these kind of days, like, don't you just feel exhausted? And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah. She's like, when you have to be like full on for 8 hours a day, it's exhausting. You know, because a lot of our work is like behind computers or on the phone or whatever. It's not in person full on anymore like it used to
Yeah.
be when I worked on the floor, right? And just that difference in, and I don't want to say effort, but like overall like enthusiasm and, you know, paying attention to detail, things like that, it really weighs on you. Like
It does. Oh, for
and
sure.
then
Like if you
to
think
do
you're
that
gonna
on
take
a
a
night
nap,
shift.
yeah, if you think
Yeah.
you're gonna take a nap during night shift, like on your
Right.
break, you get like an hour break, like it's not happening. Like you're constantly getting calls on night shift for
Yeah.
those who need like PRNs or like even medical emergencies, right?
Yeah.
And you're always like you're right, you're always on. Um,
Yeah. You're just full on for 8
you're
hours or
full
12
on.
hours.
Like it's because you have responsibility and in the sense responsibility obviously for those in your care, like your residents or patients, but you're also responsible for staff usually because you're usually a supervisor. A nurse is a supervising role.
Yeah.
Um, and man, it's exhausting. So like you can picture like I've met so in Nunavut actually when I worked travel nursing, I met a lot of nurses who worked ICU, ER department for years and years, and all of them have told me they're never going back to that. So think about it this way. They're willing, and a lot of these people have families and stuff in not Nunavut, like in whether it's like Saskatchewan, Ontario, Calgary, like wherever they have families. They were telling me that they would rather do contract nursing. So go up, I knew one guy, he would go up for like 6 weeks, he'd be home for 2 weeks, go home up for 6 weeks, go up to Nunavut for 6 weeks again, then come home for 2 weeks. And that's what he would constantly do. He would rather do that than work in the hospital and do shift work rotation.
Yeah.
That
You
speaks
blame
a
them though?
lot because he would rather do like an 8 to 4, that's like usually the shift, or 8 to 5 is usually the shift at the health centers in Nunavut. But plus you get like overtime with like people calling and stuff, and we need to meet health needs after hours too.
Yeah.
Um, but spend time away from their family essentially to get that to get that pay and to get that schedule because as a nurse, you're always on. And I think that highlights it right there is like when you're in Nunavut, you have 6 weeks of you're always on. So even if you're getting a call like midnight or in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m., you're on and you're doing it, but then they come home and you have 2 weeks of nothing. You're not on. You don't have to be on all the time.
Right.
You just get to be home with your family.
Decompress.
When you do shift work and you're doing rotating schedules or whatever, you don't fully decompress. I don't care if you even have 4 days off in a row. If you get that, you're super, super lucky, but you don't really get that. And
Yeah.
with working, what I would say, I don't like working multiple jobs. I actually liked it during COVID whenever they limited me to one job because all my time and energy was to that one place. It gets
Right.
even harder when you have to like, because you're always on no matter what job you're doing, but you have to like switch kind of the focus for different jobs, right? And I find
Well,
that's where burnout comes whenever you work multiple things.
and this is a huge problem in healthcare is that these facilities only offer so many full-time lines. And so a lot of these places hire on several part-time people, several casual staff. And it's like if they could just combine the lines to give people full-time employment, I think people would stay in their role longer. I think, you know, we've mentioned this as well, Joe. Like, how do people get a mortgage as a casual employee? Like, I struggled with that at the time, back when we were first trying to buy a house. And, you know, your staff can get to know your residents more. Like, as a casual staff, you're bounced around, it's tough. And like you say, you have to be full on in different facilities. Let's just say you work at two different long term care homes for the sake of conversation. You have to know your 80 residents at one home and 80 residents at the other home. And it's like you say, you just have to like switch it on depending on, like, you have to like folder away and organize all your knowledge for this one facility and then, look through that folder when you know what I mean? When
Totally.
you're
Oh
there
man,
kind of
it's a
thing.
lot of brain room.
Yeah,
Your
for
brain
sure.
looks like Jimmy Neutron over here, like bouncing all that stuff. Like wild.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
just, yeah,
It is a lot. Um, and that's where self care comes in. But it's like, how do you even like self care, right? And in terms of the mortgage land, I want to say I actually found a mortgage broker and I told her my situation. I was like, look, because I had one and she was like, no way. Like, unless you can provide me like with a solid like part time or full time, like I'm not approving you. So I
yeah,
was like, fine. Like man, like look at my hours, you know what I mean? You'll see that I'm working more than enough. But
exactly.
but I found one night I told her that and she's like, that's not a problem. She's like, you're a nurse. Like
Right.
she's like, if anyone knows anything, we know that you're probably getting like more than full time. And I'm like, yeah, like you like I have it's not like I'm talking out my butt. Like you can look at my
Yeah.
pays, you know what I mean? Like you can see the stuff, like I have proof. Um So I thought that was pretty cool, like, 'cause she was very, and that's why sometimes it's better working with a mortgage broker,
Yeah, depends on
just
your
for those of you
situation.
nurses buying a house, you work casual at multiple different places. If you work with a mortgage broker, usually they kind of have a pool that they can choose from, and they can be a little more flexible if you're going like a bank or like just a straight up like mortgage company that just sells their own stuff. Um,
Right. From my understanding, Joe, too, like we went through a major bank. And so I know it's a bit different for brokers, but the way that our mortgage specialist kind of broke it down for me was that when you apply for a mortgage, you submit your paperwork and all your information, your letter of employment, blah, blah, blah. It's then sent to what they call underwriters. And so essentially, that's like a panel of people who basically decide whether you fit the criteria to be pre approved for a certain amount. And so we were lucky because one of the underwriters, his wife was a nurse, from what I was told.
oh, look at
And
that.
so, yeah, and so he understood that, even though I'm technically part-time employed, I work 44 hours a week or whatever it is, and I did submit some pay stubs to like
Prove
firm
it.
firm that up. Yeah, but I think it depends because but like you say, the a broker's probably the best bet for people who work more than one job, but depending on the bank and who you get, you know, try your options for sure because there's fees that come along with a
Mhm.
broker. So you kind of have to like explore your options. But yeah, it's definitely good advice to like shop around for a mortgage regardless.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a scary it's hard being an adult.
Yeah, I
Tough,
know.
man.
I
It's
know.
tough being an adult. But in terms of Nurses Week, so Nurses Week, May 8th to May 13th, I think. I think it's next week. Um,
I thought it was nationally the 6th to the 12th, but technically I think it falls like that week. So it would be the 8th to the 12th. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
like yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure over the week. Um, do you know what Nurses Week means to me, Leanne?
Tell me, tell me, tell me.
Nurses Week for me is I'm gonna go shopping and I'm gonna tell everyone I'm a nurse to see where I can get the best discounts. Like, let's be honest.
I shared a picture to my Instagram story and it was like, it's Nurses Week coming up, May 6th to 12th or whatever. And it says, you owe me a gift if you've asked me any of the following. And it's like,
I
can you
saw
look
that.
at
Yeah.
this bruise? Or am I going to die? Or I Googled my symptoms. What do you think? Or am I in labor? Or like, there were all these questions. It's just so funny. Like, people find out you're a nurse, and it's like, okay, well, now it's my week. So I get a gift.
People find out you're a nurse and they're bending over as soon as they hear that. Like, look at my ass and think I have a warrant. Like,
So
bro.
funny. Oh my
And
gosh.
it's
What?
funny because every nurse like I've had that experience. Like I've had someone come up to me and be like, "Can you look like a family member?" And I'm just like, "What?" Like I don't know. Like
Yeah,
you
I
know what I
know.
mean? Like
Exactly. Um, Before we close this off, Joe, I want to know what's the best and most meaningful nursing week gift you've ever received, if any.
man, I received a care package one year from like I think from like the Ontario Union of Nurses or whatever, and that was a
Yeah.
pretty sweet care package. But you know what? I haven't really received a gift.
Isn't that sad?
Maybe we can post that. Cause yeah, I'm thinking about it. It is kind of sad. Like I've never received a gift from anyone, like other than like the nurses union. But like
Yeah.
for being a nurse itself, I've never received, and I don't expect a gift though either. You know what I mean?
Well,
Is
no,
is
but
that a
it's
thing? Like, have you got gifts?
well, usually like when I worked in long-term care, they did like nursing activities throughout the week, so we did like a pizza fucking party, which
Okay,
guys,
yeah,
guys, we
okay,
don't need a pizza party, first of all. Like we can provide
we've
our own
gotten that.
lunch. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, like free lunches. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you meant like gifts from like family, but we do like I have gotten
No,
stuff.
yeah.
I got like a mug once that said it had the home name and then it had a heart and then it said strong on it. So I thought that was kind of I've never used it, but it's in my cabinet. Like that was kind of
So funny, makes me laugh. Like the no, I don't want to sound ungrateful here, but like an extra vacation day would be lovely, you know?
That would actually be
Um,
amazing, eh?
right,
If they could
right?
work that out within the nursing team, like give
Yeah.
vacation days.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Like, fuck this pizza party idea. Okay. Like, I can buy my own pizza. Um, mugs, like, I guess it's a nice gesture, but you've never used it. So, point proven. Like, it's
Yeah,
obviously not like the best gift.
they
I
did.
actually, like, yeah, when I worked at long term care, they did all the like nursing week, like trivia and like all that kind of thing. Like, they try to make it fun, but like, I'm not really into that. But since I've started with working as a case manager, because my home office is in BC, I'm actually like, I don't really have a team here, like a management team here. And so my boss actually sent me flowers, and I had flowers delivered to my door last year. And I thought that was
Aw,
so nice.
that is
Like,
really sweet,
how
actually.
thoughtful.
I wish someone.
Um,
I'm a man, but I would be. I'd be blushing if someone sent me flowers. Hardcore.
I mean, we're always open to an extra vacation day. Hint,
Totally.
hint for anyone listening.
We did a barbecue once. Like they had this. It was a huge barbecue, and it was kind of killer. Um, and note, Leanne. I know it's been 40 minutes. We're gonna end this there. And note, when you eat lunch. So whenever you worked at your home that you worked at,
Yeah.
did you like going to eat lunch with everyone? Like I know some nurses love gathering and they love eating lunch together,
Mm,
and it's kind of like this thing. Like
yeah, it
they
is.
had it at my old place, and now they have it at this new place, and all the nurses get together. And I used to, I'm just gonna be blunt here. I used to reluctantly go to those,
Yeah.
and I used to eat with everyone. But I'll be honest, on my break, I want to be either in a room by myself or outside by myself. I don't care where I am, as long as I'm by myself,
Yeah.
eating my lunch by myself. Um,
See,
sometimes I would even bring residents to have lunch with me. I don't mind that. I really don't mind that. I
yeah.
just don't want like anything work related near me. And it's nothing against my colleagues. It's really not. Like it's
No.
I loved having lunch with them, and I do still have lunch and dinner with them sometimes, and I love it. But I also love just being able to decompress for 30 minutes by myself
And I
and just
think you
eating.
need that though. For me, Joe, like, because our unit was technically split in two, like I would work with another nurse, but I mean, we would work collaboratively together. However, we were very separate throughout the day. And so we would actually go for lunch together, the two of us, because we were really close. But on the days that we didn't work together, no, I would, like, 9 times out of 10, I would sit in our break room and talk with whoever was there. But like, I'm basically on my phone, like just trying to decompress.
Yeah,
Sometimes I would go to the cafeteria and I would sit with someone who's on another unit. So like, we hadn't shared any type of like resident info, like nothing like that.
yeah,
Um, but no, like, I'm like you, I like to kind of just decompress, like, even if it was with my like co-nurse on the floor at the time, we weren't really working directly together. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, the units were like 40 residents, so she would have 20 in her med cart and I would have 20 on my med cart, and they were divided. And so her side was her side, my side was my side, but then we would help each other obviously on like the two-person things, but
yeah.
very much like divided throughout the day. And so when we'd get together for lunch, it wasn't really like a gossip fest. Like, we would sometimes just sit there on our phone even. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Like
we
you'd be
both knew.
together, like in
Yeah.
your presence. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
like that. I appreciate that.
And I always like admired that. Shout out to Michelle if you're listening. I don't know if she listens to these, but um yeah, I always admired that about her, because she's so good at reading people, and she could tell if I was like overwhelmed or whatever and just needed to kind of sit there or whatever. And I definitely, that's a part of the nursing like on floor that I miss, having those like relationships. But I've built just different relationships in the role that I'm in now. So I think there's like, benefits to trying new positions. And yeah, I guess you never know where it'll take you, I guess.
You never do, guys. You never do. Have that dog mentality.
But don't burn
Woof
out.
woof. Yeah, don't burn out. Do it while you're young. This is what I say. I'm still very fairly young. I'm not gonna. I'm doing all this stuff now so that when I am 40 years old, I can be chilling in a nice position, and I have the merit to back it up, like I'm in the slums right now, in the gutters, doing all that,
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, thanks for listening today. I think Joe and I, what we've kind of discussed is we're going to start releasing
Season.
episodes in seasons. We're just finding it difficult to be able to record throughout the year. So I think, we obviously haven't discussed it too far in detail, but just know that, we may not be uploading for quite some time, and then we'll come back with a great episode, or a few episodes, I should say. But as always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Nurses with Attitude Podcast. We also have an Instagram. All of our info is, I guess, in the description of this.
Yes,
Joe deals with the podcasting side of things, so the
it's gonna
description
be somewhere.
box.
Don't
Yeah, you'll
stress,
find
it's
it.
be
You'll
somewhere.
find it.
Yeah.
Just look us up, Nurses with Attitude, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Bye, guys. Happy Nurses Week.